Hi, I'm Karl Taylor from visualeducation.com. In this episode, we're going to look at 10 things that photographers get wrong. So let's kick off. Number one, thinking that camera kit is the solution. So you've probably heard this one before. People say, oh, it's always about the kit or it's not about the kit. So many photographers get caught up in this argument about must have this lens or this camera to be able to shoot that picture. And it's just not the case. Now, I know many of you are going to say straight away, well, that's all right for you to say because you work in this beautiful big studio with all that lovely lighting equipment and cameras, etc. And you'd have a fair point, you'd have a valid point. But as I've proven time and time again, we are able and competent with our knowledge to produce high quality image results, even with basic equipment. I've demonstrated that with speed lights before on other shoots. I've demonstrated it by using just basic camera equipment and pieces of cardboard to light a model and be creative. I've demonstrated it by just using one light to do a complex product shoot. So the next argument that people would have, oh, well then it's because you've got all the space to do it. And again, to prove those naysayers wrong, I've demonstrated when I'm working in a really small space as well and how I can still create great images. So we've countered that argument many times before on this channel and on our platform. And another great example recently was we had a guest photographer on our platform for an interview, a photographer called Debbie Sears. And she's been in the business for a long, long time. And I had to select some of her work from her Instagram feed and from her social media and website, etc., to talk about on the show. So I just said, look, let me choose whatever I want. So I went in and I chose this image, that image, that image. And she was quite surprised by what I'd selected. And when we spoke about it on the show, it was really interesting because I'd chosen these images that I thought were really stunning. They had something to them, some sort of atmosphere, some sort of mood to them. And then she revealed on the show that a couple of the images that I'd selected had actually been taken just on her iPhone. And some of the other ones that had been taken on 35mm cameras that looked like high-end studio images were actually just taken with natural window light. So again, it's another example of where photographers think or get obsessed with camera kit as being the solution to creativity or being the solution to getting great images. Now, whilst this stuff helps you be more effective and more efficient, it is not the solution to creativity. Yes, it helps. Yes, it's a bonus. Yes, it can help you work faster, etc. But it isn't creativity. Definitely not. So number one, we've drilled this in 100 times before, but we're saying it again right now because it really is important to get into this mindset of creating, using what you've got, being creative, not being scared to try it, and just doing it. That is absolutely fundamental to success. Number two, taking compliments from friends and family. So again, this is a tricky one. We're probably going to get a bit of pushback on this as well. But a lot of photographers, they get above their station early on and they kind of like think they're going like this and they're on their way to the stratosphere with their work, when actually they got the learning curve and then they think they're here, but they're actually kind of like now here before they go there. And part of the problem and part of the reason for that is they've taken too many compliments from social media or from friends and family especially, where the people you ask initially when you're a photographer, whether, oh, what do you think of this shot? Or what do you think of this work that I did? If you're asking friends and family, they're always going to be complimentary. They cannot give you an honest answer because it's very difficult to hurt someone's feelings. So they're always going to say, oh, that's really nice. Oh, I love what you did there and la, la, la. when actually in reality, in the grand scheme, on a level playing field of people that you don't know, those images might be just rather insignificant or rather mediocre by any other standards or benchmark. Now, interestingly, we made another great video that was quite popular here on YouTube about comparing yourself to other photographers as a benchmark. So maybe you want to check that out as well. But yeah, this one, number 2, taking compliments from friends and family, can actually be a massive disaster for your photography, your image selections for your portfolio or your website, because friends and family will just give you nice answers as standard. And you really need to be a little bit more subjective with the choice of people that you use for gauging or grading your work. And this can even apply with Instagram and social media channels. More often than not, people are quite complimentary. So even though they may be strangers, you still may be getting compliments about your work that don't really match the reality. So I would encourage you to check out the other video that we've got about comparing your work and using actual other well-known photographers or professional photographers as a benchmark to really evaluate your work. Number 3, not doing enough research or planning. Now, this one is very, very important, and a lot of photographers don't realize, or a lot of new photographers don't realize how important this actually is. It can range from anything such as a simple portrait or fashion shoot to a landscape shoot on location at the coast or in a forest or wherever, or to a product shoot, still life, conceptual, fine art, whatever. Any type of shoot, the more research and planning you do, the more likely you are to have success. And the reason is, if you think about, for example, the top National Geographic guys, National Geographic photographers working on location, photographing a particular culture or subject or event, that sort of thing. They don't just rock up where their editors said, oh, go there and shoot that. They research it, they plan it, they look at the culture, they look at what events might be taking place, they look at the history of the place, they figure out the possibilities of what that particular culture or event might reveal. Research is absolutely fundamental to the work that they do. Equally, even in a fashion shoot or a portrait shoot, things to do with the styling, the planning, the location, recceing the location in advance is hugely important. Landscape work as well. Whilst it's nice to walk around and casually shoot street images or landscape images, there's so much more success that can come by knowing where the sun is going to be at a certain time of day, where the light might bounce off a glass building and create something interesting and unique, where the sunset position is going to be relative to these rocks or those trees, what height the tide is going to be on that day that combines with that sun position. All of these things are planning and research. Using things like Google Maps, we've shown in many of our classes how I use Street View to determine locations for street images in Paris, where I'm going to get the Eiffel Tower at exactly the right view through a particular avenue or something interesting. There is another case where we photographed the Brooklyn Bridge in New York, and we worked out where we were going to shoot before we even got to New York from London by using Google Street View to figure out some angles. Then we use apps like the TPA app to discover the sun position. Remember, the position of the sun is different every day. Every month it's moved quite a position different, not only in height, but in angle. That causes great variations in the angle of the shadows and the length of the shadows, etc. So all of those variables come under planning and research. And it's super, super important for all aspects of photography. And whilst it's absolutely possible to capture great off-the-cuff pictures in street photography and other situations, isn't it better to also have the knowledge and information so you've got that as well, so that you can still capture those moments that happen, but you've also got some sort of plan to follow for a greater chance of success. Number 4, expecting good photos to fall into your lap. Now, this leads directly on from the last one, because many photographers, they'll book a model or a subject, they'll spend money on a studio session or studio hire, time, lighting, equipment, and they think it's just going to be all freedom and let's see what happens and let's throw that bit of fabric over them, or let's try that and then let's shoot this. And they didn't create any mood boards, they didn't create any ideas in advance. The model then doesn't know what to do with themselves, they don't know how to pose, they don't know the theme of the shoot. The same if it was a fashion shoot on location or a landscape again. All of these things, the more you can build a sort of portfolio of mood boards or a selection of folders with images for style of poses or makeup or clothes and angles of the body or positions of any variable for the shoot, that you can build mood boards and then use that and work with your team, your model, your makeup artist, your hairstylist, so that everyone understands what you're trying to achieve. Or if it's even simply going to shoot some city scenes, understanding what that city looks like, where things are, what's interesting, which buildings, where the light is going to play, what time of day. You know, there's no point turning up at 11 a.m. just to randomly shoot some city street scenes if actually the best light is going to be at 6:30 p.m. and the light is going to be incredible falling down that avenue or bouncing off of that glass. So it again goes back to that sort of research and planning and not expecting good photos to fall into your lap. Now, I'm not saying they can't, because often they can, but again, you'll have a greater chance of success with that little bit of extra work to begin with. Number 5, thinking they know enough about light. Now, this one really gets on my nerves, to be honest. You have photographers that come along, they have been involved in photography maybe 1 or 2 years, and they've learnt enough about shutter speeds, apertures, exposure, ISO, composition, all the normal stuff, and they now consider themselves some sort of expert. They know what focal length lens to use for portrait, wide angles for landscapes or whatever, telephotos for this, that and the other. They understand all the camera mechanisms, and now they consider themselves an expert. And the real truth of this is you are not an expert in photography by any means until you fully understand light. And I mean really, really understand it to another level. This is well beyond just saying, oh, I know that soft light comes from a large light source. And I know that hard light comes from a small light source. And I know that hard light will give me well-defined, sharp edge shadows, and large, super soft lighting will give me barely any shadows at all, or very diffuse shadows. Those are just the very basic fundamentals of lighting. There are millions of variables around that, all sorts of various topics to do with shadow density, the shadow clarity, definition, the color in the shadows, the color of the key light, the ratios of the light, the almost like the resonance of the light, skin tones, gloss surfaces, gradation, image forming reflections. I could go on and on. These topics to do with the fundamental physics of light, to do with angles of incidence, angles of reflectance, the emotional aspect of light in how we use shadows to create mood or an ominous, more oppressive feel, and how we can change the density of those shadows to create a completely different feel. Can you create sunlight? Do you know how to create sunlight in a studio that actually looks like realistic sunlight because you've applied the inverse square law correctly? If you do not understand these fundamental fine detail principles of light, you're never getting close to the photographer that you could be. And I would encourage you, whether you use a platform like ours at Visual Education, where we have all of that information on all of the tiny variables on light and all the professional level information, or whether you read books or whether you study images or wherever you get it from, I implore you to just go to the next level when it comes to knowing and understanding light. Number 6, not shooting enough. This sounds very basic, and it is essentially very basic, but the best photographers do not come from reading a book, absorbing the information and knowing the information, because unless you actually do it, then you're not going to be able to reproduce it instinctively. So shooting enough is absolutely key. We've all heard the phrase about the 10,000 hours needed to master anything, sometimes maybe even longer. But this is actually quite key and quite relevant, because the more you do, the better you get, no matter what it is, whether it's karate, motorcycle racing, athletics, any particular thing that you want to excel in, you need to put in the practice. Number 7, not vetting their content enough. And what I mean by this, it's a little bit linked to number 2, taking compliments from friends and family. But not vetting your content enough means not really looking at your work objectively and deciding what is good and bad. And then you end up putting too much work on your website to fill a space that then leaves you with some really good images mixed in with some average images that then bring the whole quality of everything you do down a peg. Whereas if you'd only gone with quality over quantity, you could have focused on that. And I hear a lot of photographers say to me, oh yeah, but that's fine, but then I don't have enough work. Well, then it goes back to number 6 of not shooting enough. You need to shoot more. I mean, interestingly, I had a conversation with a photographer who was really good standard early in his career. He's now top-level pro photographer. But at the time, they were concerned they didn't have enough work in their portfolio. And I said to them, it was far better for them to spend the next 6 months shooting one really good image per day in the studio or on location, because what have we got? 365 days in a year. So, you'd be over 150, 160 images if you just shot one really good image per day for 6 months. And imagine how greater and broader your portfolio would be by just doing that. So sometimes concentrating on your work for 6 months before going pro, or for a year before going pro, and really focusing on producing high quality work for a longer period and then getting that work on your website is far better than populating your portfolio and website with average, mediocre work. Number 8, worrying about social media. I've seen so many photographers who are so concerned with their social media profile or their Instagram profile that they spend more time worrying about that than they do getting actual work done, than getting on with creating great images and great photographs, because they think they constantly need to be busy on social media, showing things and showing stuff. Some of the world's most successful photographers and fashion photographers that are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for a shoot, they don't even have an Instagram account. There are several I know that don't actually have any social media at all, and yet they're still getting huge projects to work on. They have a great website, of course, with great images and a great portfolio, but they don't even bother with social media. A lot of photographers get wrapped up in having to have a following on social media, having to post so frequently all the time, thinking that it's important. And I'm not saying social media can't be important, but if it becomes the main focus rather than the actual creativity and the work itself, rather than building and crafting a brilliant portfolio of images, if social media takes over, you become distracted and you get caught up in this rat race of competition that isn't necessarily as important, because there are many variables in, especially if you're in business as a portrait photographer, weddings or product or whatever. There's a lot more to be said for just actually having a really high quality website full of great images and having a great portfolio that you can send out in the mail or go and see people with. Now, you may not even want to be a commercial photographer. You may be just doing it for your own personal reasons. But wouldn't it be so much better to focus on the work, on the creativity, crafting these beautiful images for your own personal reasons, and then posting those to your social media rather than the other way around and worrying about social media. Worrying about social media can be a huge negative drain, in my opinion, on creatives. Number 9, wasting their time on training and not doing. Now, this one might sound a little paradoxical, considering that we run what I consider to be one of the best training platforms on the market for visual artists. But the reality is, even though I would say we deliver some of the highest level knowledge on the science and the art of photography, it's not going to make a great deal of difference if you don't do something with it. And again, it goes back to number 6 of not shooting enough. You have to do stuff as well to learn. I can teach you all the knowledge from my 30 years experience, and other experts on our platform can teach you all of their knowledge and skills, and you can absorb it. But if you don't do it, then it's not going to make any difference whatsoever. So you need to do. You've just got to go and do stuff. So many people want to build a portfolio of images or want to have this amazing body of work, but they're just not willing to put the effort in or put the work in. And we provide the skill set to allow people to do that, to fast track them in a way that university can't. And unfortunately, not everyone takes advantage of then putting into practice what they learnt. And this is absolutely crucial, because, you could read 20 volumes on how to do karate and how to become a black belt, but you will never be a black belt within your first session, even if you have all of the knowledge absorbed. You have to absorb the knowledge and then practice. Absorb the knowledge and do it again and do it again. And then when you do that, then you become a master at something. Then you start creating incredible work. And then you really start to deliver, and take satisfaction in what you've achieved and what you've accomplished. So all the training in the world, and the best training as we offer, isn't going to help you if you're not willing to do as well. Finally, number 10, having terrible people skills. Some people are more introvert, some people are more extrovert. But if we're going to work with people, as we do in photography, even myself as a product and advertising photographer, I still have to deal with people, even though I'm photographing an object that isn't going to talk back to me. And sometimes, yes, I'm allowed to work on my own and shoot that object. But generally speaking, on campaign level work, I've got a client there, I've got an art director, I've got assistants, there's various people working on the project with me. And you need to maintain good people skills and good communication. If you're a portrait photographer, especially important, because you've got to build that rapport with your subject, make them feel comfortable. You've got to not seem or appear to be nervous so that you instill a sense of confidence in your subject. If you're a wedding photographer, it's extremely important to have great people skills because you're trying to manage people throughout the day, guide them, organize them, arrange them, and you've got to do it in a light-hearted and fun way so that you don't spoil or ruin the day. And every sort of situation in photography, with maybe the exception of solo landscape photography, every situation requires you to work with people, often a collaboration, such as fashion photography, working with a team of people, makeup artists, hairstylists, models, all that sort of thing. Even in street photography, you might sort of consider that as a sort of solo venture, but there are still people in the situation and within the image, and sometimes you may need to speak to those people, ask them if it's okay to take a photograph, communicate with them, various little things like that that could really be improved if your people skills are improved. The only situation I can think just off the top of my head where it wouldn't matter is, of course, just going out and doing pure landscape photography, you, the wild, and a tripod and a camera, fine. But nearly all other situations in photography require some form of good level communication with people for success. So that's 10 things that I believe photographers often get wrong. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm Karl Taylor from visualeducation.com. Thanks for watching.